Guys, so welcome back. I haven't traded in about a week. We ended up taking a break due to the tariffs, due to slow market. With the holiday last week, didn't really think much was going to happen last week with tariffs and that. So we ended up taking the week off and just relaxing, which was super nice. Didn't have to stress out about it for anything. But now today we're back at it for the first time in about 2 weeks or so. So today was actually a pretty big day. We did a very good job. We actually stuck to our plan, did everything great, and we ended up having a pretty big day today. The reason being was strictly one stock, UPXI. We had some news come in about 8 o'clock this morning, maybe a little earlier, don't quite remember, but either way, we had about 8 o'clock, and ended up having very nice move up over 600%. So let's break it down and show you exactly what I was seeing beforehand. So looking at what we first saw is we ended up getting a nice move right at 8 o'clock. We look at the 1 minute chart right here. We ended up getting this pretty nice pop right here. So we went from all the way from 227. What is going on? All the way up to about 420 right there. So the very first move was actually very good. So let's see what I had right here at this point in time. So I would have had a horizontal line right at 425 mark. As we got that pop, then it pulled back. Let's see what was going to happen, see if it was actually going to come on back. Now, right after that initial pop, I didn't jump in right away. Unfortunately, I didn't get that initial trade going. But while we were waiting, this is when I would take my horizontal lines and start marking out my key points of resistance on the daily chart. So at this point in time, I'm going through, putting everything down putting everything down from just right where it started taking off. That way I can see where it can come back to. So since it took off around that 220 mark, it looks like we went over that 296 mark, so I wanted to make sure we had something there. So if this were to retreat, I could see that would retreat back maybe to that 296 mark, maybe that 352 mark. So that way I know what we were potentially trading or what we potentially could go back to. Now once we got over that 613 mark, did see that we had started getting a lot of room, a lot of gaps. So once we started getting some momentum throughout the day, we ended up having some very nice moves. So now that we have the entire daily chart mapped out here with all of the lines that we need, where our potential stops could be for the day. Who would have thought it would have went over $15-16, but it ended up making that really nice move all the way up to about 20. So let's make sure we have all of our horizontal lines. I definitely did not have it marked up this high as we started going through the day. Yeah, absolutely, that's when I started putting all my horizontal lines up even higher and whatnot. But now that we're up at that 22 mark, we'll stop and leave it there. So just off of this right here, I have my full daily chart laid out, all of my marks where I need them. That way I can see where this stock will potentially go. Now, I have all that done. I would go back over to the 1 minute chart and take a look and see what everything was going on here. So we did have this initial pullback right after that spike right up to 430, which wasn't a key resistance spot on our chart. However, it failed to break that point. So we knew, all right, if we go to 420, we might have room up to about 480. So what we did is we ended up taking that trade as soon as we broke over that 425 mark and held. All right, so popped up, saw that we were holding, took the trade here, and I got out right around that $5 mark. We did do that spike. Unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough to get out. I would have loved to have been, but fortunately, I was hoping that it was going to keep going, and then it did a quick little pullback. I got out around that 5 mark, if I'm not mistaken. So, good quick trade there. And then we did have another rally with this topping tail here. I wasn't sure I know we did break that 480 mark. We could have went up to 613, which we absolutely did right here, then pulled right back. So now that we hit two of our daily levels here, we hit that, sorry, a couple of our daily levels, but at this point, we pushed pretty high to that 480 and pushed pretty high to that 613 mark. I knew that we might get a little bit more action just because of the high volume that we have here, and the low volume selling candles that we have. So at this point in time, I was able to start drawing trend lines. So let's get our rays out. What I did is I connected the two highs. That way I had them. Am I right? Then we did have this little spike again, this little retest. Now MACD is still positive here. We did get this little retest right here to break up over 630. Break that high. Get up to about that 650 mark, or sorry, that 670 mark, we pulled back down. So I would have had another horizontal line or a horizontal ray right here to break this point. Try again. So this is what my next trade was. I did take this trade, did break through, took a quick scalp and got out. Now the MACD has gone negative right here, so absolutely no trades. Now here is where things started to get pretty wild with UPXI, because we started getting these moves, a lot of low volume selling, low volume here. We still had this up. There wasn't much going on the scanners at this time. We did have a couple stocks that started to move, DWTX, stuff like that, but not with any volume, not with any news catalyst, nothing like that. Nothing really had a news catalyst going on. And with the markets, how they've been the last 2 weeks, even though I wasn't trading, I would still do my due diligence and look at it. What I noticed is we haven't had a lot of moves, especially on no news. It does happen still, and it can still happen, absolutely. However, I was looking for a stock that did have news, and this one definitely did have some news, and we definitely were able to take advantage of that. And a lot of buyers were looking at it as well. So we definitely picked the right stock today. So we knew we had the right stock. I'm going to make another horizontal ray here. That way it can connect. I'm sorry, not ray. Sorry, I'm going to take just a regular ray. That way I can make another trend line connecting these two highs going forward. So once I broke this line right here, going up over the trend line, breaking 6. So the push over 6, break over 6. Nice little movement there. Very strong move. High volume again. And that nice little push through. And the nice thing is, if we follow this trend line that we had, it hit that trend line. So we would end up getting about 863. So if we held the entire time, perfect. I don't think we got that entire move. That was a massive move, a $2 move. I think we were able to capitalize about $1.15 on that. So we ended up going from 6 all the way up to, I think it was, let's actually pull it up. Okay, we actually got out at 857. So we got in bad fill, well, not bad fill, 610 all the way up to about 857 is what we ended up getting. So we got pretty much this whole move, which was great. We'll take that. After that, MACD was still positive. I believe I did try to go in for this initial trade to break up over that, and this is one of the ones that we ended up getting hit on. That absolutely happens. Unfortunately, we should have waited for the pullback. We did have 1, 2, 3, 4 green candles in a row. Now let's also look at the 5-minute chart and see what we had as well at this point. So at 8:36, we go here. So we had this nice move up right there. We got pulled back down to this 887 mark. Okay, so this was still in there. All right, so we took this 1 minute candle to try to make a new high here, but we were a little overextended, and unfortunately that trend line did not break then. However, we still did have a positive MACD. It did have lighter volume selling compared to our buying here. If you look right here and right here, which was great, we were able to go up and break this again. So we did, while we had decreasing selling, we started to have increasing buying power right there on that 1 minute. And we did take this trade for the 1 minute to make the 1 minute candle to make a new high. And we look over here. We were way above our daily goal, I'm sorry, not our daily goal, but our daily chart at 875. We broke that right here, so we took that trade going up over 875 again, up into 9, all the way to about 11. So let's see here. Now we're at our daily chart. Let's make sure we have all of our lines. So we knew that we're at 11. We still had room up to 1253, but this is where we can start getting some pullbacks. So at this point in time, since we hit 1132, right? Started hitting 1132. This is where we started to have those pullbacks right here. So we got in and sold, took the trade off of the 855, up and over, which was right there. Perfect. And then we went and dropped back down. So another line that we could have had in here, which I did. Now this is getting confusing. This is why I have a couple different charts up. That way we are not looking at all of these different things. We can even look at my 10-second chart here, because this is where I was really trading. I like to trade in the 1 and 10 second chart. 10 second is where I'm looking before I take the trades. 5 minute and 1 minute setups are what I'm going for, but I use a 10 second and the level 2 to determine where my exact entry points are going to be. So if we just line everything up, if we look at this 930, this would be our next move that we had. This big move. So that's when it started getting tricky, because we did have the move before the MACD started going positive here. Obviously our bigger move was once it broke and held this trend line. So we knew that moves might start happening as the MACD is opening. We had to be sure that we were looking at the rush of volume coming in. So right here we did have a consolidation period, especially right at that open. I don't like to trade at the open. We did have a range that we absolutely could have traded from. Because if you look at the open on the 10-second chart here, didn't trade any of this from the 958 to the 1080. We did stay in this channel after we had this big drop. However, with this flat bottom right here, I could have taken a trade off, especially once I hit once, twice. Could have taken the trade right here to go back up. Absolutely, it would have been smart. However, I was afraid of a drop coming up at 930. I didn't want to risk it. I've seen it happen plenty of times before, and it's just not something that I'm personally comfortable with. So I didn't want to overstay my welcome. Didn't want to do that. So I just sat and waited. We were up already a good amount at this point in time. There was no need for me to rush in and take a trade at 930. Yes, it did go up, but it immediately dropped. So once we started to get that volume back up, right? So we started having this increase of volume, and we went to go test again at this 1083 mark at 933. So a little later, this is when we started getting that move up. So now we got that move up, and we're holding this 12 line again. So if we look back here, we had already had a horizontal ray because that was our high a day at that point in time. So now we knew we had from 12 to about 1253, because we on our daily chart we have about 53 cents of room. That's a good amount of room for me. Let's take a look and see what we can make happen here. But at this point in time, looking at 1253, and hit this mark at 12. We skyrocket up to about 1390. Get a trade in there. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we did not trade it here, just because it was early and MACD was negative. So I didn't want to take the trades there. Unfortunately, it was patience. Everything was patience. Everything was patience. I did see that we were respecting the VWAP, as well as these couple trend lines that we had. So we did have a couple trend lines. Let's go to the 5 minute here. So we did have a few trend lines forming at this point in time. we did end up taking a couple trades off of. So right here, we had a retest at 12. We were holding this trend line here. And as we broke up over this 13.59, here was another trade. Took that right there, got out at about 15. So we hit that top of the trend line, we pulled back, and we tested again. When we tested this again, the first 5-minute candle to make a new high from 1584 going up over 16 was my next trade. So how I did this, guys, is I was able to use the 10-second to solidify where my entries were going to be, right? Then using the 5-minute and 10-minute, know exactly when and how I should take these trades, if that makes sense. I use the 5-minute for 5 and 1 minute to set up, make sure that it's looking where it is, and as soon as I see the price action happen on the 10-second chart, along with the level 2 people, the sellers getting bought up along those lines, or sellers going away, this is where I started to do this. Now, once we broke this, right at this $20 mark, we had a huge topping tail. That's the topping tail. So that's one red sign. Two red signs, if we look right here on the 10-second chart, when we hit that $20 mark, so let's do this, let's show you. When we hit that $20 mark, so there's our high, we also had a head and shoulders form here. So that told me that now this move is going to the back side of the trade. So here's the shoulders, right? There's your head. Here are your shoulders. So seeing this big topping tail, this head and shoulders formation start to come right here, and seeing how much room we've had from 19 all the way back down to 1591, that was a lot of room to go back and drop. So I didn't want to take those chances of staying in on a trade that may end up flushing back completely or giving back the entire move. So at this point in time, this is when I said, okay, I'm done with trading. I saw this big topping tail, this head and shoulders forming, nothing on the 1 minute that was showing me that I needed to do that. Yes, we're still holding VWAP, that's great. Can I make another move? Sure. However, the MACD has been negative for 30-40 minutes now. My trading session's done for the day. There's no reason to overstay my welcome. I did everything I need. We broke this trend line that was holding on the 5-minute chart. The only thing I can see that's really holding right this second would be these couple points at the 457. I could be 1457. Yeah, sure, I can hold these and start doing scalping and dip trades and stuff, but why do it when I'm already up and I don't need to, right? I'm not going to overstay my welcome. I'm going to get in, I'm out, and then hopefully we'll have another good day tomorrow. I'll keep it up if things keep moving. Great. However, up over 600%, probably about 400% right now. It's not really worth me staying in and doing this. The move's already been done. It can still go, sure. I don't think it's going to with this head and shoulders and this big topping tail that we have here on the 10-second and the 5-minute. And even on the 1 minute, we still kind of have a head and shoulders pattern form right here. So I think we're good for the day. I think we broke all of the trend lines that we needed to saying that we're done for the day. Even though we still may have a little curl coming up here, we might get a little bit, to about that 16 mark, might get a 50-cent move here as we break. But being on the backside, I don't really want to trust it anymore. So it's not really worth me hoping and staying in and praying that it continues to make these moves. See, still making those moves though. It still wants to. And we'll get up to about 16 and it'll pull back down, I'm assuming. Let's see what happens here before we call it a day. No. See, it's starting to struggle. We have the same amount of selling on the 10 seconds as buying, so we wouldn't get all that move all the way up. Not yet, at least. There's a potential it still can rally back up. We are starting to have lighter volume selling. But that being said, it's not punching through. It's not going through. It's struggling compared to what it was. Yes, it's still curling. Yes, it's going up. However, like I said, there is no need for me to stay in and push my luck. Alright guys, that'll be it for today. You guys have a great rest of your day. You know, if you guys are still trading, be smart. Don't overstay your welcome on stuff. Make sure you are following your strategy. Make sure your strategy is working for you. Guys, this is what happens. Take a step back. Relax. It's okay. Don't have the fear of missing out. These things happen. Just make sure that you are using your trend lines, using your strategy, whatever you use to make sure that you are doing the correct thing. Make sure you are following your strategy. All right, guys. This is it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.